we have a chartered accountant as our guest today, who is now a photographer and a cinematographer and a film producer. His name is Adewale Tosin Ogeyingbo.
Yes, Ogeyingbo.
Ogeyingbo. That's a very strange name. But he will tell us what it means in a minute. Yes, Tosin, what does your name mean?
Adewale Oluwatosin Ogeyingbo. Ogeyingbo simply implies beauty doesn't fit. Ogeyingbo. That it doesn't fit.
Call it like that now. Ogeyingbo.
What
beauty.
State is that from?
Okay.
It's from Ogun State.
Oh, okay.
Ogun State, Ijebu, to be precise.
Okay.
Ogeyingbo.
Yeah. You should have known. So what is a chartered accountant doing working all this work that you are working?
Well, if I have to put it straight, it's not something I actually look forward to, as in that someday, after going through, I actually had my ND in accounting and my BSc in accounting at Obafemi Awolowo University, and then took a while before I got chartered. But I had a passion from the time I left school, which was in 2005, which was actually having to, hold the camera and then do different angles, recording. Then it became like a passion to me. So
I have my own theory as to why you could not stay in that profession. You want to hear it? The way you look.
No, okay. If actually some of my colleagues that were actually finished from the university are watching this, they will affirm to you that while I was in school, I was always dressed in suits and tie, and I keep low cuts. But it was when I started doing cinematography, and then sometimes you have to quickly hurry out of the house, and then you start paying little details to some things, and then the other saying the hair starts, locking up, and it became there's something in fashion that everybody's carrying a locked.
Well, you certainly wouldn't have allowed to carry that. Wouldn't have been allowed to carry that hair being a chartered accountant.
Well, I'm not really sure that will be allowed.
Chartered accountant, you go and audit accounts of some big company, and they take their account from you immediately. I promise you.
Okay.
Anyway, maybe that's why.
I actually left this like almost close to 3 to 4 years before I started keeping dreads.
Okay.
And
so why did you leave that to go into this?
Okay. Like a close friend of mine told me that from one side he already knows that I was going to leave accounting. But truly, I was very good at what I did, because before I left, I was heading internal control. And then the insight I have into IT actually helps. I became a system administrator for Pastel Evolution. And even while I was in my organization, some other companies outside were actually calling so that I can help set up their accounting system. So it wasn't that I was not doing very well in that aspect.
Still, you left it.
Yes, but because at a point I found out that I enjoy working, I enjoy editing. For instance, when I was still doing accounting, I know I closes around 5 o'clock, traffic plus or minus. I get to around 8 o'clock, and then I start editing from maybe around 10, and I sleep somewhere at around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, with my system still on if it's rendering. So once they take lights, and then the inverter beeps in, I kind of wake up. So at a point, it becomes obvious that if I continue to do that, I was going to wear out very fast, one. And then two, the income that I was getting from my gigs and the accounting were now competing. And it came to a point that I found out that Monday to Friday, and I net the expenses and everything out of it. And then one of my outings, I said, we actually paid what I would get in a month. So why not just, put the other.
He even still use the accounting language. He nets.
Yeah, so why not just focus on it and, the excess capacity that I have, I can actually put into building myself in some other areas.
Now, there are those who would wonder if how accounting, for instance, has helped to helped you in this new career path that you have selected? Because there are those who would say, look, as soon as I'm done or I was done with my certificate, I just took it and gave it to my dad. And then I went ahead and chased my passion. Is there any contribution of accounting to what you do now?
As an accountant, we are like an all-round person. While we're in school, they always say that you got scattered, and then later on you become chartered. That means you have a little knowledge of almost everything. You know, if you are working in a television organization, you have to have some insight into how the costing are actually being placed. So for me, it has not been a loss. In fact, it is a gain. Because when I started doing my, events and video coverage, I easily got insight into how to do my costing. And then at the time I was actually speaking to a friend, I said, do you know that you turned out so many events at your own detriment? And he asked why. I said, can you imagine that, okay, on a Saturday you are at home, you don't have a gig, and then someone actually calls you to actually cover an event. And then you put all your costs into place, the cost of renting a camera, the cost of you actually transporting yourself there, your own allowance for handling that camera. And then the offer the person is actually giving you can actually cover all that. If you turn it down, that means you're actually running at a loss at that point in time. Leaving alone that there's some things that you would do that will actually, bring in there's some other gigs that you have. I'd had clients that called, ahead of time. Like there's an event I did in December, and I actually covered the prior event in March. And as at April or so, the clients kept calling that should come in and want to pay for the one they're going to do in December. I said, no, I'm not collecting the money because I'm not going to bill for it yet. I will wait till when I know that I can actually, appropriate the cost in the right direction.
Yes.
So I would say that for me, accounting has been a plus for me. And I applied it into acquisition of my assets, in which I know when to actually set money aside for replacement of each of the equipment I'm using, which in accounting is called depreciation. And then there's some asset that I have that has come to a point that you just have 10 naira worth, the net worth of the asset in your account. So with those equipment, I know, okay, I've had this for 4 years, and then if I had actually been setting X amount of money for it, at the end of 4th year, if another newer version comes out, I can actually buy another one. And guess what? As at 2000, when the lockdown was on, 2020, had more than 10 cameras. And because of the advent of the live streaming, a lot of churches, a lot of friends were asking for the camera. So I started selling. Because in my head, I know definitely that, okay, what the technology you're talking about is actually in this. But for me, I can actually forecast that, okay, at a point in time, there's going to be a newer technology that comes into place. And guess what? Those assets were acquired a long time ago, and I've depreciated them. I've saved towards it, replacement, so we can
let them go.
Let them go.
How many cameras do you have now?
Well, I have close to 10 now as well, because I teach photography. So, and sometimes when I go to the school, I have to go with equipment that, the students can actually practice with. And then with my accounting inside, I know I can do rentals as well. So if I'm not going out to do works, I can actually release the equipment for those people that have gigs. So while I'm sitting at home, I'm having residual income.
So there's no point even asking you if it's been worth it for you to leave accountancy and go into this?
Well,
because I know the answer. You've already given us the answer. Ajay Wole.
Yes, to an extent. But sometimes I feel it when I meet some of my friends and they're all, set, looking this, and that. So
what do you mean they're all set?
It's always a pride there when we go to the office and we put the tie on and everything. And then again, okay, I'm leaving this out. One of my directors said in a meeting when we were actually doing a proposal, and then it was like, one would make an investment. And he said, how many accountants have used? All the accountants will actually support a particular view that you shouldn't go into that investment. And some people that are not accountants, developers, and like said, okay, it's profitable. And he said, do you know what, that accountants are never that rich? And I said, no, because inside of me, I said, no, I'm going to be rich. And he said, you know why? Because you guys take calculated risk. And not even calculated risk, you don't like taking risks. That you have been trained all the while to actually grow your income at a particular preset. But if, as an accountant, you have that understanding that you can take calculated risk, then everyone is actually accountant works everywhere. There's no organization that you don't have accountants. So me working as a videographer as a cinematographer is a plus to me anyway.
Okay. Well, enough of the accounting part of it. Now let's talk about the business that you really, do now. There are people who make these coverages, live streamings, and all those things. People just have the experience. They get into the hall, they see the videos on the screen, or they receive the link, they just click the link, they are part of the conference or whatever the event is, or they just receive the pictures of their events, or the video coverage, or edited whatever it is of their events. They don't know what goes into it. And truth be told, no one cares.
Yeah,
we just click the link. There's audio, there's video, we're good. There's no audio, we are complaining. Give us an insight into what goes on behind the scenes of the things people see and enjoy on the screens.
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm into film productions, and with that, you can predict when you're going to shoot a film, precise. But when it comes to events, it is a different ball entirely. They call them videographers because you have to do a point and shoot. How you see it, you shoot it. But for professionals, we take time to actually, for instance, you call me for a burial program, as in to cover. And one of the things I will ask is that where is the venue? What time is it taking place? And they're like, so once I know is a venue that I'm familiar with, I can go back to my scratchbook and bring out some things to know about it. Otherwise, I will visit the place. For instance, if you're going to do a live stream, you have to go there before the event day. Do what we call a speed test. That's the number one thing you
for the internet use.
Yes, the internet you use there. You do a speed test on it to know how fast, whether you can actually do a live streaming or not. Then if you're satisfied that, okay, this particular modem will work, or this particular
network
service will be what to be used there, then you move further to, is it going to be a 3-camera work, or is it going to be a single camera? If it's going to be more than a single camera, then you have to either decide we're going to use a wireless transmitter. And then when you're using a wireless transmitter, you have to know the area of coverage you can do, and then interference that
Just
is
to
into
be clear,
place.
this wireless transmitter, because you are many people don't know, I have any idea what you're talking about. So
Okay.
This wireless transmitter is for what? The camera, the mic?
Yes, for events, the wireless transmitter is actually for the cameras.
Okay.
So you for instance, you having some of the events, there may be an overflow, or the event actually flow from outside to inside. For instance, when you are doing a wedding reception, for instance, you see that the couples comes from outside into the church. So when you are covering, and then the church, building itself is actually a barrier. So when you are using the camera outside, and people inside the church actually want to see what is going on, you have your barrier. So you have to calculate at what point, and a particular place that you're going to put your cursor. Your cursor actually involves your mixer, the receiver of your transmitter, and then where you actually plug every other things that you now send your signal back to the live feed that you have in the auditorium, or maybe you have a system that you are streaming from. Not forgetting that you must have calculated where you will position your internet, which it will receive maximum, because there's some auditorium, once you bring in the internet from outside to inside, it changes from either 3G to edge, or it changes from 3G to non-available.
To no G at all.
To no G. So they have to determine exactly where to place it. So when you do that calculations, then you can actually say, okay, this is the distance that I'm going to go. And then if I'm going to be at this distance, then you can decide I'm going to use either a wide lens to zoom lens. So when you're using it,
you're already going into your lectures now. We don't really need the lectures right now. But because somewhere, what's wide lens? What's lens? I don't know what to say. So essentially my question is around the fact that people don't really know what goes on behind the scene. Do you think people appreciate the work, the logistic requirements that go into these live events?
I don't think they do. Okay, let me give you a live example. Yesterday, I was at my mechanic workshop, and then there was an event I covered in December. And then one of the photographers there, which was doing the video, actually called that he lost a clip. And then he has been trailing me all around. And I said, okay, come and meet my mechanic workshop. I'll actually give you the footage. So when he got there, I said, what happened? He said, you won't believe it, that he attended the vendors meeting. And then the event planner said that the food for the photographers and the videos guys are going to be kept separately. So when we are done, or at a point in time, he can actually give us the food, so we look for how to eat. So he left his camera and went to eat. And unfortunately for him, the person coordinating the video was actually the one dancing at that point in time.
Oh,
so
wow.
he missed the entrance of that woman into the stage. And then when the event proper starts, so he said he submitted the video and the woman come back and said, I will not pay you. I call you specifically because of myself and Mrs. That. Why will you go ahead and do this? Then I said, how did that man? I said, well, number one thing is that I don't cover an event with one camera. I don't. I use two cameras. And then the second thing is that Gala has actually been saving the life of photographers for a very long time. So I said, all my staff knows that when we go for a quest like that, we come fasting and then we have a gala at our pocket. So even if you are so extremely hungry, you have to just bring it. So they don't really appreciate it. And guess what? There are times that you go to the point at where you can eat, and then they tell you that you have to hold on. When people have guests, as in people have finished eating, then we'll serve photographer. And then the question is that, are we not human? And meanwhile, the camera that you are carrying is not really this. Like, for instance, some of the cameras we use can actually buy everything on that table. Everything, including maybe some that I usually joke a lot about this. Like, when people come to rent camera from me and they don't come, with that Uber or with their car, say, do you know that that camera is more expensive than your car? So they don't look at it, so they underestimate what we do. And the funny part of it is just that when you now miss a clip, that's when they know how valuable you are. They give makeup artists a lot of money to do the makeups that before the event proper starts, you start wearing out. But meanwhile, the person that's going to document it, you have not paid. When you're going to buy the cow and, buy the rice, the clothes, the tailor, and every other thing, you are paid in full. And then you want someone to cover your events. And then you say, that's too much. And then there have been instances that I advised them, and somebody has offered me some ridiculous amount, like was talking about 70,000 and 100,000. I said, man, you know what? You are offering a lot. If I were you.
That was in the days of VHS.
Well, I said, well, if I were you, just use that money to buy phone.
And
And then
use the phone.
you use the phone to cover your event beautifully. Just give it to somebody.
We're
Starting
running out of time. Let me just ask you this one. As Alero started, you have transited from accounting to, what you're doing now. How easy was that transition for you? I'm asking for someone who is also thinking of a career change, but they are afraid how it will turn out.
Okay.
What should that person consider?
The question I ask myself is what you have actually said, the last statement you made, the fail. What will you do if money is not involved? What will you do? If it's not about money, what will you do? So for me, I had to leave it aside. I tell my apprentice that if you start your career looking out for money, you would, end it looking for money and you will never find it. So some people are afraid of losing the salaries they are earning, for the fact that, okay, if you are doing events or cinematographer, that you don't know where your next meal is coming from. In the same vein, when you are working for somebody, because you don't know whether the person will pay you at the end of the month. So if you can put those considerations in place, then you can actually know that you have to follow your passion.
Somebody is going to tell you that federal government will pay me no matter what happens.
Do you know how many federal government workers have not been paid?
We're out of time.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Very interesting. So you have no regrets, obviously, for leaving accounting for...
Has he left accounting? Or rather, has
no,
accounting left?
I didn't leave accounting.
Okay.
I still practice. I still keep my records.
Okay.
I have my invoicing systems and I do my costing.
Adewale, Tosin.
Ogeyingbo.
Ogeyingbo.
Yes.
Ogeyingbo. A chartered accountant, turned photographer and cinematographer and film producer. Thank you very much for being our guest on Sunrise this morning.
Thank you.